The stars had never refused the Valorian dominion. In 10,000 years, they had conquered 347 worlds across 3 spiral arms of the galaxy. They had crushed empires that spanned solar systems. They had broken species that considered themselves gods. The Dominion did not ask for surrender. They demanded it, and every species, without exception, had given it to them. Fleet Commander Zoroth Velkan stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Throne of Subjugation. Through the massive viewing window, he watched 9,500 warships move into formation. It was the largest invasion fleet in Dominion history. Each ship was a mountain of metal and fire, armed with weapons that could crack planets open like eggs. Together, they were unstoppable. Their target was a small blue world at the edge of an unremarkable solar system. The natives called it Earth. Zoroth had read the intelligence reports with amusement. Earth was classified as a class 4 primitive world. The species living there, called humans, had only recently figured out how to leave their own planet. They had no faster-than-light travel, no planetary shields, no orbital defense platforms. Their most advanced weapons were crude missiles that used chemical explosions for power. By Dominion standards, they were children playing with rocks. The conquest was expected to take 6 rotations, maybe less. Strategic analyst Yenna walked up beside Zoroth and handed him a data tablet. She was young for her position, but brilliant. Her job was to find problems before they became disasters. "Commander, I found something strange in the human archives," she said. Zoroth did not look away from the window. "What is it?" "Their history, sir. They have been keeping records for about 6,000 of their years. In that time, they have been at peace for only 268 of those years. The rest of the time, they have been at war. War with whom?" Yenna paused. "With themselves, Commander." Zoroth finally turned to look at her. His 4 eyes blinked slowly. "Themselves? They fight their own species?" "Constantly, sir. They divide themselves into groups based on territory, beliefs, skin color, and dozens of other factors. Then they kill each other, millions at a time, sometimes tens of millions. They have developed weapons capable of destroying their entire planet, and they have come close to using them on themselves." Zoroth let out a low rumble that passed for laughter among his kind. "And you think this is a threat? A species so stupid they cannot stop killing each other? This only proves how primitive they are. They will crumble the moment they see our fleet. They have never faced a real enemy. They only know how to fight among themselves like animals." Yenna hesitated. "Sir, with respect, that is not what concerns me. What concerns me is that they are still alive. Any species this violent should have destroyed itself long ago. But they did not. They survived. Every war made them stronger. Every weapon they invented, they learned to use and then to defend against. They are still here, Commander. That fact alone should give us pause." Zoroth dismissed her with a wave of his hand. "Your concern is noted, analyst. But I have conquered worlds with populations in the trillions. I have faced species with technology far beyond these humans. This will be no different. Now return to your station. We enter their system within the hour." Yenna bowed and walked away, but she could not shake the cold feeling in her chest. Something about the humans bothered her. Something about a species that spent thousands of years perfecting the art of killing, that built weapons capable of ending all life on their world and somehow did not use them. It was not stupidity. It was something else, something she could not name. The fleet entered the Sol system with the confidence of a predator walking into a field of sleeping prey. They passed the outer planets without incident. The gas giants with their many moons showed no signs of defense systems. The asteroid belt was empty of weapons platforms. Everything matched the intelligence reports. Earth detected them when they passed the orbit of Mars. In every other invasion Zoroth had commanded, this was the moment when panic set in. Governments would fall into chaos. Military forces would scatter. Civilians would riot. The species would tear itself apart before the Dominion even fired a shot. Fear was the greatest weapon in the Dominion arsenal. The sight of 9,500 warships had broken the will of countless worlds. But Earth did not panic. Within hours of detecting the alien fleet, something unprecedented happened. The nations of Earth stopped fighting each other. Wars that had lasted decades ended in a single day. Enemies who had hated each other for generations suddenly began sharing intelligence. Armies that had pointed their weapons at each other turned to face the sky together. Factories that built cars and televisions began building missiles and armor. Scientists from rival nations started working side by side. The humans did not argue about whether the aliens were real. They did not waste time debating what to do. They had spent their entire existence preparing for war. The only thing that changed was the enemy. Zoroth received reports of this unified response with confusion. His advisors assured him it would not last. A species this divided could not truly work together. Old hatreds would resurface. The alliance would fracture. He simply needed to apply pressure. He did not understand what he was seeing. He could not understand. The Dominion had never faced a species like this. They had never encountered a world where every nation, every army, every person knew how to fight because fighting was in their blood. They had never invaded a planet where war was not a tragedy but a way of life. The humans did not see the alien fleet and feel fear. They looked up at the sky and saw what they had always seen when an enemy appeared on the horizon. They saw a problem to be solved. They saw something to be killed, and deep in bunkers beneath mountains, in submarines beneath oceans, in silos hidden under empty fields, 12,000 nuclear warheads began their final preparations. Weapons built to destroy human cities would now reach for the stars. The machines of human self-destructs would become machines of human salvation. The Valorian Dominion had conquered 347 worlds. They had never lost a war. They believed themselves invincible. They were about to learn what happens when an entire species decides not to die. The Dominion fleet took position in orbit around Earth. From above, the planet looked peaceful. Blue oceans, green lands, white clouds. Zoroth had seen hundreds of worlds like this. In a few weeks, this one would belong to the Dominion. The oceans would be harvested. The lands would be mined. The people would be processed into the workforce. He ordered the communications officer to broadcast the standard subjugation demands. The message was sent in every human language. It was simple and direct. Lay down all weapons. Present your leaders for public execution. Prepare your population for processing. Resistance will result in the destruction of your cities. You have 1 hour to respond. Zoroth waited. He expected begging. He expected offers of surrender. He expected the humans to fight among themselves about what to do. That was what always happened. What he received instead was a single message, sent from every major nation on Earth at the same time. It came in every human language, but the meaning was clear. Come and take it. For a long moment, Zoroth stared at the translation on his screen. Then he smiled. Good. He preferred it when they fought. It made the conquest more satisfying. He ordered the first wave to begin orbital bombardment. 500 ships broke formation and descended toward Earth. Their mission was simple: destroy a few major cities. Show the humans what true power looked like. The survivors would surrender quickly after that. The ships dropped through the atmosphere with their shields raised and their weapons hot. Their targets were cities called New York, London, Beijing, and Moscow. The plan was to turn these cities into craters and then wait for the rest of the planet to beg for mercy. They never reached their targets. The humans had hidden their nuclear arsenal well. Missiles launched from underground silos across multiple continents. Submarines in every ocean opened their tubes and fired. Mobile launchers hidden in forests and mountains added to the barrage. In total, over 2,000 nuclear warheads rose into the sky in the first wave alone. The Dominion ships detected the missiles and almost laughed. Chemical weapons, primitive explosives. Their shields were designed to stop energy beams that could cut through moons. These little rockets would do nothing, but the missiles did not try to hit the ships directly. They detonated around them, dozens at a time, hundreds. The explosions created massive electromagnetic pulses that rippled through the Dominion formation. The radiation was so intense that sensors went blind, and the shields, designed to stop focused energy attacks, had no idea what to do with the raw, unfocused fury of nuclear fission. 187 ships fell in the first hour. They did not fall gracefully. They fell like burning meteors, trailing fire and smoke across the sky. They crashed into oceans and mountains and empty deserts. Each impact was another explosion, another scar on the face of Earth. But the humans did not care about scars. They had plenty of those already. Zoroth watched the casualty reports with disbelief. Nearly 200 ships lost to a species that did not even have energy weapons. It was impossible. It was humiliating. He ordered ground forces to deploy. If the humans wanted to fight, he would give them a fight. Dominion soldiers were the best in the galaxy. Each one was worth 50 of any other species. They would establish a foothold on the surface, build a base, and crush the human resistance. The drop ships descended under heavy escort. They landed in coastal regions, in farmland, in the edges of cities. The soldiers poured out, weapons ready, expecting disorganized mobs with simple guns. What they found was worse. The humans fought like nothing the Dominion had ever seen. They did not form neat battle lines. They did not follow predictable tactics. They hid in buildings and shot from windows. They buried explosives in the roads. They attacked from behind, from above, from underground. They wore no uniforms. Sometimes the soldiers could not tell the fighters from the civilians, until the bullets started flying, and the bullets never stopped flying. Dominion soldiers began to die, not in glorious battle, but in sudden, violent ambushes. A patrol would walk down a street, and half of them would fall before anyone saw the shooter. A sniper to kilometers away, invisible, patient, deadly. The survivors would search for the enemy, but by the time they found the hiding spot, the human was gone. They learned new words from captured communications: guerrilla, insurgent, ambush, IED. These were concepts the Dominion had never needed to understand. They conquered with overwhelming force. They had never fought an enemy that refused to stand and face them. The humans also had a way of fighting that seemed insane. They would strap explosives to their own bodies and run toward Dominion positions. They would drive vehicles loaded with bombs into bases. They would call in strikes on their own locations if it meant taking enemies with them. Yenna studied the reports with growing horror. They do not fear death, she told Zoroth. Our soldiers fight to live. Their soldiers fight to kill. They consider their own lives acceptable losses. Zoroth did not want to hear it. He ordered more troops, more ships, more firepower. He would bury the humans under the weight of the Dominion military. But the humans kept fighting. Every city became a fortress. Every street became a death trap. Every human, it seemed, knew how to fire a weapon. Farmers with hunting rifles. Office workers with pistols. Children throwing rocks at armored soldiers. The entire species was at war, and they knew how to wage it. In the first week, the Dominion lost 800 ships and 60,000 ground troops. The humans lost cities and millions of people. But they did not stop. They did not slow down. They did not surrender. Zoroth began to realize that this was not going to be a conquest. This was going to be a war. A real war. The kind his species had not fought in thousands of years. And somewhere deep in his mind, in a place he would never admit existed, he began to wonder if it was a war he could win. 1 month into the invasion, Zoroth made a decision that should have ended the war. He would concentrate all his remaining forces on a single target. The North American continent was the heart of human military power. If he could crush it, the rest of the planet would fall. He sent 3,000 ships and 500,000 ground troops to establish a permanent fortress on the continent. The landing was brutal, but successful. Dominion forces pushed inland, capturing territory, building bases, and preparing for the final campaign. Than the humans did. Something that Zoroth could not understand. They destroyed their own dams, massive walls of concrete that held back entire lakes were blown apart by human engineers. Billions of tons of water flooded valleys where Dominion forces had made camp. Tens of thousands of soldiers drowned in the night. Equipment worth more than some planets was swept away like toys in a river. But the humans drowned too. Their own cities, their own farms, their own people were caught in the flood. They killed themselves to kill the enemy. The next week, the humans began burning their own crops. Fields of grain and corn went up in flames. They poisoned wells that Dominion forces might use for water. They collapsed tunnels and mountain passes to slow the enemy advance. They tore apart their own roads and bridges. Yenna watched the satellite feeds with a face as pale as death. She had never seen anything like this. "They are destroying their own world," she whispered. "They are killing their own planet to stop us." Zoroth stood beside her, watching cities burn. "This is not strategy," he said. "This is madness. No sane species destroys itself like this." But Yenna had been reading. She had spent every night studying human history, trying to understand these impossible creatures. And she had found the answer. "It is not madness, Commander. They have a name for it. They call it scorched earth." She showed him the records. Russia in 1812, when they burned their own capital city to deny it to an invader named Napoleon. Russia again in 1941, when they destroyed their own factories and farms to slow an army called the Nazis. Vietnam, where farmers with simple weapons fought the most advanced military on their planet for 20 years, and won. Afghanistan, where empires went to die. The humans had been doing this for centuries. They did not just know how to fight. They knew how to lose and keep fighting. They knew how to turn their own destruction into a weapon. They would rather destroy everything they had than let an enemy take it. Zoroth read about Stalingrad, where humans fought in the ruins of their own city for 5 months. They fought in sewers and basements. They fought with knives and bare hands when they ran out of bullets. They starved and froze and died by the hundreds of thousands. But they did not surrender. He read about Thermopylae, where 300 soldiers held a pass against an army of millions, knowing they would all die. He read about Masada, where 1,000 people killed themselves rather than become slaves. He read about kamikaze pilots who flew their planes into enemy ships, trading one life for hundreds. The more he read, the colder he felt. These humans were not primitives. They were not simple. They were monsters. They had spent their entire history fighting the most dangerous enemy in the galaxy, each other. And they had survived. Every war had taught them new ways to kill. Every defeat had taught them new ways to endure. They had been forging themselves into weapons for 6,000 years. And now they were finally united against a common enemy. All that violence, all that experience, all that terrible knowledge was focused on a single target, the Valorian Dominion. While Zoroth was learning to fear, the humans were learning to adapt. In a factory in the mountains of Ukraine, a team of engineers worked on a crashed Dominion fighter. They had no idea how the alien technology functioned. The physics was beyond anything in human science. The materials were unknown. The language on the controls meant nothing. But humans had been figuring out how to use stolen technology since the first time. One tribe took weapons from another. They did not need to understand. They just needed to make it work. Within 2 weeks, they had powered up the fighter's energy core. Within 3 weeks, they had connected it to a human weapon system. The result was ugly. It was crude. It was held together with welding and tape and prayers. But when they fired it, the beam of plasma burned through 6 walls and melted a truck outside the building. The first human-built plasma rifle was born. Copies began spreading across the resistance networks. Factories that once built cars now built hybrid weapons. Scientists who once studied physics now studied alien technology. The humans were learning fast, faster than anyone had thought possible. Zoroth received reports of Dominion soldiers killed by energy weapons. His own weapons, stolen and modified and turned against him. The prey was becoming the predator. He had lost over half his fleet. His ground forces were trapped in an endless nightmare of ambushes and suicide attacks and traps. And now the humans were starting to match Dominion technology. His commanders begged him to retreat. Call for reinforcements. Come back with a larger fleet. But Zoroth refused. The Dominion had never retreated. To run from primitives would be the greatest shame in their history. So he ordered his forces to hold, to keep fighting, to crush the human resistance no matter the cost. It was a decision that would kill them all. By the 3rd month, the war had changed completely. Humans had captured enough Dominion ships to form a small fleet of their own. Most of the ships were damaged, barely functional. But human engineers had learned to repair them, to modify them, to make them work. They did not care if the repairs were ugly. They did not care if the ships were held together with metal plates and hope. They only cared that the ships could fly and fight. The pilots were volunteers. None of them had ever been to space before the invasion. They had learned to fly using captured training programs and simulators built from alien computers. Their training time was measured in days, not years. By any reasonable standard, they should not have been able to fly these ships at all. But humans did not care about reasonable standards. They cared about killing aliens. Captain Maria Santos was one of these pilots. Before the invasion, she had flown cargo planes for a shipping company. Now she led a squadron of 7 captured fighters against the Dominion fleet. Her pilots called themselves the Ghosts because they attacked from nowhere and disappeared before the enemy could respond. The Dominion had centuries of space combat experience. They had trained since birth for war among the stars. They knew every tactic, every maneuver, every trick. The humans did not know any of that, so they invented new tricks. Maria's squadron approached a Dominion carrier group near the orbit of the moon. The carrier was called the Eternal Conquest, and it had destroyed 15 human cities. It was protected by a ring of escort ships, their weapons ready, their shields at full power. Standard tactics said you should never attack a carrier group directly. The firepower was too great. The shields were too strong. You needed to wear them down over time, pick off the escorts one by one, and then strike when they were weak. Maria did not have time for standard tactics. She had a different plan. Her squadron flew straight at the carrier group at maximum speed. The Dominion commanders assumed they were going to try a hit-and-run attack. They prepared their defenses accordingly. Instead, the 7 human ships flew past the escorts without firing a shot. They dove straight into the carrier's open hangar bay, where fighters were launched and recovered. The Dominion had never seen an enemy try to enter a carrier. It was suicide. That was exactly the point. Once inside the hangar, Maria's squadron activated their self-destruct systems. The reactor cores overloaded, creating massive plasma explosions in the heart of the ship. The Eternal Conquest was torn apart from the inside. The explosions spread to the ammunition storage, to the fuel tanks, to the other reactors. The carrier became a ball of fire and death. The escort ships were caught in the blast. 3 of them were destroyed immediately. 2 more were crippled. The rest fled in panic. Maria Santos and her entire squadron died in the attack, but they took over 4,000 Dominion soldiers with them. The humans called it a victory. The Dominion called it terrorism on the ground. The situation was even worse for Zorath's forces. The humans had learned to hunt. Dominion soldiers were taught to fight in formation, to rely on their technology and their training. They were not prepared for an enemy that attacked from shadows and vanished before they could respond. They were not prepared for traps that used their own psychology against them. The humans learned that Dominion soldiers slept in 4-hour cycles, so they attacked during sleep times again and again, never letting the enemy rest. Within weeks, Dominion troops were exhausted, jumping at every sound, shooting at shadows. Their effectiveness collapsed. The humans learned that Dominion officers were proud and would not retreat from a fight, so they set traps that looked like easy victories. Officers would charge in, expecting a quick kill, and find themselves surrounded. The humans would let them fight for hours, bleeding them slowly, before finishing them off. The humans even used the Dominion's own technology against them. Captured communication devices let them listen to enemy orders. They would send fake messages, leading Dominion patrols into ambushes. They would broadcast false information, making commanders believe attacks were coming from the wrong direction. Zorath watched his army fall apart piece by piece. His soldiers were afraid to leave their bases. His ships were afraid to fly alone. His commanders were afraid to make decisions, because every decision seemed to lead to death. He had only 4,000 to 100 ships left. He had lost more than half his invasion force to a species that could not even travel between stars. The greatest military in the galaxy was being destroyed by farmers and factory workers and teachers who had learned to kill. His senior commanders came to him with a formal request. They wanted to retreat. They wanted to leave this cursed planet and return home. They would come back with a larger fleet, with better weapons, with knowledge of human tactics. They could still win, they argued. Just not today. Zorath looked at them with cold eyes. The Dominion does not retreat, he said. We have never lost a war. We will not start with these animals. He ordered them back to their posts. He ordered the fleet to prepare for a final offensive. He would crush the human resistance with everything he had left. But as his commanders left, He saw something in their eyes that he had never seen before. They did not believe they would win. They believed they were going to die. And deep down, in the place he never admitted existed, Zoroth was starting to believe the same thing. On the 97th day of the invasion, the humans launched their final operation. Deep beneath the mountains of Switzerland, in a bunker that had once housed the greatest physics laboratory on Earth, a team of scientists had been working without sleep. They had been given every piece of captured Dominion technology. They had been given every resource the surviving human nations could provide. They had been given one mission: find a way to end the war. They called their creation the Prometheus device. It was not elegant. It was not beautiful. It was a massive nuclear warhead wrapped around a captured Dominion faster-than-light drive. The scientists had discovered something strange about the way the alien engines worked. When they activated, they created a tiny tear in the fabric of space. Normally, ships used this tear to slip through to another location. But what would happen if you detonated a nuclear bomb at the exact moment the tear opened? The math suggested something terrible. The explosion would not just destroy things. It would break space itself. The tear would grow, spread, and consume everything nearby. It would not be an explosion. It would be an erasure. The scientists did not know if it would work. They did not know if they could control it. They only knew that it was their best chance. The Dominion fleet had gathered for a final assault on Earth. Zoroth had pulled all 4,000 to 100 remaining ships into a tight formation above the Pacific Ocean. He planned to begin with a complete orbital bombardment, burning the surface of the planet clean, then rebuilding with Dominion colonies. If he could not conquer the humans, he would exterminate them. He never got the chance. A single human ship rose from Earth. It was small, barely visible on Dominion sensors. The fleet commanders dismissed it as another suicide attack, another desperate gesture from a dying species. They prepared their weapons to destroy it. The ship reached the center of the Dominion formation, and then it activated the Prometheus device. The faster-than-light drive opened a tear in space. At the same instant, the nuclear warhead detonated. The explosion did not spread outward like normal. Instead, it poured into the tear, feeding it, making it grow. The tear became a wound. The wound became a hole. The hole began to pull. Ships that had survived 100 battles were dragged toward the growing rift. Their engines screamed at full power, but they could not escape. The hole did not care about engines or shields or weapons. It simply ate everything that came near. Some ships were crushed by gravitational forces so strong that metal flowed like water. Some ships were stretched into thin lines of matter before being pulled into darkness. Some ships simply stopped existing, their one moment and gone the next. In 17 seconds, 4,100 ships were destroyed. The hole collapsed as suddenly as it had opened, leaving behind empty space where the greatest invasion fleet in history had once been. Only 83 ships survived, scattered at the edges of the formation where the pull had been weakest. Zoroth was on one of those ships. He had watched his entire fleet die in less than half a minute. He had watched the humans break the laws of physics to destroy their enemies. He had watched the impossible become real. He ordered the survivors to retreat. The human fleet, such as it was, followed them. Captured ships and modified fighters chased the Dominion survivors toward the edge of the solar system. They fought running battles for 3 days, humans dying by the dozens but taking Dominion ships with them. Every destroyed alien ship was a victory. Every dead Dominion soldier was revenged. By the time the fighting ended, only 17 Dominion ships remained. 17 out of 9,500. They limped toward the edge of the solar system, engines damaged, weapons depleted, crews broken. Zoroth did not survive the retreat. His escape pod was hit by debris from a destroyed escort ship. His final log entry was recovered from the wreckage weeks later. "We were wrong about them," he had recorded, his voice weak and strange. "They are not primitives. They are not weak. They are a species forged in endless conflict. They have been fighting since the day they crawled out of the mud, and they have never stopped. Every enemy made them stronger. Every war taught them new ways to survive. They are the nightmare we never knew to fear. Do not return to Earth. Do not provoke them. Do not remind them we exist. They have tasted Dominion blood now. I fear they have developed a hunger for it. The 17 ships reached Dominion space 3 months later. They were the first ships to ever return from a lost battle. The High Council of the Dominion demanded a full report. Strategic Analyst Yenna, one of the few senior officers to survive, was called to deliver it. She stood before the Council, the most powerful beings in the galaxy, and told them the truth. She told them about the nuclear weapons and the suicide attacks. She told them about the scorched earth and the endless resistance. She told them about humans who would rather die than surrender, who would destroy their own world to take their enemies with them. When she finished, the Council was silent for a long moment. Then the High Chancellor spoke. "When can we send another fleet?" Yenna looked at him with eyes that had seen too much death. "Another fleet? You misunderstand, counselors. The question is not whether we can conquer them. The question is whether we can stop them from conquering us." She placed a data crystal on the table in front of her. "We captured this transmission from Earth before we retreated. Human communications, translated into our language." She activated the crystal. A human voice filled the chamber, cold and hard and full of promise. "They have shown us that we are not alone. They have shown us that there are enemies among the stars. They came to our world to make us slaves. They killed our cities. They killed our families. They thought we would break." The voice paused. "We did not break. We learned. We adapted. We survived. And now we have their technology. We have their ships. We are already building more. We know they are out there, and we know they will come again. So we will find them first. We will go to their worlds the way they came to ours, and we will teach them what humanity does to its enemies." The message ended with 3 simple words that made the High Council go pale. "We are coming." Yenna looked at the silent rulers of 347 conquered worlds. They sent their first ship beyond their solar system last week. It was using our faster-than-light technology. They learned it in 3 months. At their current rate of construction, they will have a fleet to match ours within 5 years. She turned to leave, then stopped at the door. "We went to Earth looking for slaves. We found something else. We found the most dangerous species in the galaxy, and we made them angry." The Dominion had conquered 347 worlds. They had never lost a war. Now they had 347 worlds to defend. And humanity was coming.